Today, the Haggadah analyzes the process of the redemption itself, all of the signs, miracles, and wonders that were associated with the story of the Exodus. And one of the things that the Haggadah focuses on today, in explaining the fourth of the verses from Devarim that it has been using to engage the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, one of the elements that it specifically identifies is the staff. And so we're all familiar with the fact that for a number of the plagues, Moshe is instructed to take his staff and use it in order to somehow miraculously execute the plague, that the staff is a necessary element in the plague coming to existence. So the question is, what is the significance of the staff? Why was it so critical to have the staff involved? So I'd like to suggest perhaps three possibilities. Possibility number one is that the staff may have been a symbol of the defeat of the Egyptian system of idolatry and sorcery. Right? Again, if you recall, when Moshe transforms his staff into a snake, right, the Egyptian Khartoumim, the different sorcerers in Pharaoh's palace, attempted to do the same with their staves, perhaps implying that the staff was a magical symbol to the ancient world, right? And that Moshe's staff represents a defeat of that magic of the ancient world. So that's possibility number one, that the staff really represents a defeat of all those other staffs that the world believed in at the time. Possibility number two, and this is really suggested by the Sefarno in his commentary on Chumash, is that the staff really essentially is an inanimate object. It's something of no great significance. And that perhaps what is being indicated by the presence of the staff, right, is that this is, and again, even if you look back to the way that Moshe originally is introduced to the significance of the staff, God says to him, "What's in your hand?" He says, a staff. In other words, it sounds like it's something incidental, which basically proves that God can work with whatever elements he chooses with. And that really that the intermediary is really incidental, right? It happened to be a staff, but it could have been anything. And in fact minimizes as well Moshe's role as the intermediary. It's not Moshe's power, right? It's God choosing to use, whether it be Moshe, whether it be the staff. Perhaps that explains why some of the plagues involve the staff and some of them don't. To show that it's not Moshe, it's not the ashes that he throws into the air for the boils, right? It's not Aaron, it's not the staff, right? God can use anything to make these plagues take place. So that's the second possibility, that it's the very homeliness of the staff which indicates the significance of the fact that these are the miracles that God is working. Finally, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos suggests that this staff was actually very different than we suggested before, but it was a miraculous creation that actually was something which God created, the Mishnah says, at twilight between the 6 days of creation and the first Shabbos. Which means, to keep it very, very simple, that the staff was part of God's plan from the time of creation. In other words, that the significance of that is that the staff represents the notion that what happened in Egypt is not coincidental, but was something that was fundamental to God's view of the world. In other words, it goes back even farther than the Bris Bein Absarim, but to the very point of creation, right? God intended for the saga of the Exodus to have to take place, and therefore created the staff in order for that to happen. It's interesting to note that the Midrash actually says that the staff was created with the words Ditzach Hadash Ba'achav, the acronym for the plagues, on it. In other words, that the instructions were there from the very, very beginning, and that is the significance of the staff. The staff represents the crucial providential nature of the whole story of the Exodus. What's interesting about that, as I think I may have noted before, the Divrei Chaim, the Sanzer Rebbe in the 19th century, would actually start his story of the Exodus not as we conventionally do it, from going down to Egypt or even from Avram Avinu, but would start from the story of the sin in the Garden of Eden. The idea that what we are celebrating on Pesach is part of a cosmic drama. So again, three different understandings of the significance of the staff. Number one, a polemic against all of the magic of the ancient world. Number two, to highlight the insignificance of the messenger, right? That it's really God's power and it can be wrought through whatever is at hand. And thirdly, the idea that this was a plan from the very beginning, that the staff was from the very first act of the play prepared for the use that we see it in the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim.